Thursday, May 22nd, here to celebrate the life and times for our pal Dan Dragich at the Wild Times downtown St. Paul. One of Dan's, gosh, they played here every week for a year. I only played here the one time with him about a month ago, but here's where we're having it. And we hope the sound guy has shown up, and we're going to go see what's going on.
Amazing son, brother, friend, and musician Daniel Paul Dragich, who died suddenly on May 7th of 2014. On behalf of Dan's family, Mark, Faye, David, and Joey, we'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming to support a man we all loved. All of us together, we represent our love for him from every aspect of his life, as we knew him as Danny, Dan, Daniel, and Dragich. Please know that every part of this organized tribute was created and designed down to every last detail with the inspiration of how Danny would have celebrated and how he would have wanted it. Tonight we have a set schedule for a tribute and dedication that will last approximately 2 hours. The lighting will cue everyone when the program is over, but everyone is welcome and encouraged to stay and socialize until bar close. To begin the evening, a band near and dear to Danny's heart, known as Dragich and the Trainwreck, a band of friends he considered immensely talented and brought so much to his music, will be performing a song written by Danny, Here Is No Promises.
lucky enough to have played in a group with Dan called Dragich and the Polemics. And if you're like me or anybody else that saw us play or booked us, you probably have, you and I have no idea what a polemic is. A lot of times we would be going on and somebody would be introducing us and they'd say, "Here, let's have a big round of applause for Dragich and the Polemics." And Dan used to get so mad about that. He would come after the show like, "Did you hear that idiot up there? Calling us Polemics?" And of course I'd play along like, "Yeah, that guy, he was really dumb. I bet he doesn't know what a polemic is. I mean, polemic is." Well, contrary to what the definition of a polemic is, Dan and I never argued. I think this was largely due to the fact that we never talked about religion or politics. But Dan and I shared more similar opinions and feelings about music and film than any other person I met or that I expect I will ever meet. In other music settings, I always find like I don't quite fit in, or I don't belong, but performing with Dan, I never felt so connected. I have worked with, I've never worked with someone that's been as appreciative and thankful as Dan was. And having that strong of a connection to another person is like realizing that there is someone in this great world that is like you, and that the world is somehow less lonely. And I think all of you here can relate to that. You had some kind of connection similar to that with Dan. And when someone that close to us leaves, it's like our world just got a little emptier. And that little part of you is gone as well. When Dan made a decision to leave this world, there were two great consequences. The first was that he would hurt each person in this room one final time because of that decision. The second consequence was that he had shown us just how much he was hurting himself. If all of us in this room and anyone he had ever met were to collect all we knew about him, we still wouldn't have a grasp of the feelings he had at times. And when a person like Dan is gifted with a powerful mind and a loving heart, it can bear really heavily upon this creative soul. A beautiful soul such as Dan's can sometimes fall prey to great spells of distress. And as a society, and maybe as a species, including myself, we just don't do well talking about mental illness. Even me saying this right now is terrifying me, but that might just have to do with the fact that I'm delivering it in a speech in front of a crowded room to his family and friends. But I really believe this is where we start, by simply talking, and if not now, when? I know there are some people here that may have had some harsh final words with Dan, or wish that they had not grown as far apart as they had. And some of you may even feel that only if you had done, or if you had said something different, things would not have turned out the way they did. Or that you could just simply have done more. The truth is, we are all feeling that, some of us greater than others. And this is how the disease spreads. By echoing in our heads those thoughts of regret and guilt, we create a weight in our soul, much like an oyster creates a pearl from a small grain of sand. But if we share those thoughts with each other, suddenly that weight becomes less. It is now upon all of our shoulders and not just in your heart. If you have a regret you are feeling about Dan, chances are at least one person in this room shares that same experience. And if you share that similar experience, you realize that that pain in your heart is the same as the pain down in theirs. And suddenly this big world that just became lonely is not as lonely as you thought. And that's what we're here for tonight. Sharing our pain, our regrets, but more importantly, our joy. And this does not stop tonight. Please keep your photos and stories coming. In the years down the road, the family and those closest to Dan are really, really going to appreciate that. Even if it seems like not a big deal right now, share it, remember it, keep his memory alive. And this is how we do it. When I heard about Dan's passing, I was flooded with great memories I had playing with him and Anthony through the years. My one regret is that I wish that I had told him more often how great of a musician and songwriter he was. I hope he knows now how I feel, and I hope he can hear me right now. My story of joy is this. About 6 years ago, I got a DWI. Last one, I swear it was. Yep. I called Dan to let him know, and like the kind soul he was, he immediately offered to help me in any way he could. Even drive me to my court date, which is in southern Minnesota. I took him up on the offer for a ride to the court, and the night before my court date, I stayed at his place so he could leave early in the morning. And as I got late in the night, Dan had a few beers, and he suddenly became very quiet. He became very serious and looked at me and said, "No, just hear me out on this and tell me what you think. I have some experience with this, and I think I know what to do. Tomorrow at court, I think you should let me represent you as your attorney." Had he done this, a small towns like boys will be boys sort of things, he probably could have gotten me off. But this is the person I knew as Dan Dragich. The person that wanted so much to help people and make people happy. Dan, we played some great gigs. And we played some not so great gigs. We laughed a lot. Thank you, my friend. You made my life better.
I met Dan in 2004, I'm guessing, with the grace of Steve McClellan, who was playing a demo show, and I heard his guitar playing, just warming up, and I walked up to him and I said, "Oh my God, nice A minor scale in Spanish, or nice A minor Spanish scale." And he's like, "Oh, you play?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, don't we all?" He was the most talented person, especially when it came to his singing. He had so many things in his life that I'm sure a lot of people would envy. And when talking to my girlfriend, I think we're probably going to see a video a little later, which is Dan singing Little Mockingbird with my girlfriend. And, you know, I don't know if anybody knows about the exception rule. When you have your significant other, and except for if you run into this person. And I asked her, "Okay, so who would your exception be?" And she said, "No, you know the answer to that." I said, "No, I don't." She goes, "Obviously, it's Dan." She didn't spend as much time with him as I did, and I wish I would spend so much more time with him. And he was always there for me when I needed him. And we were the Insomniac twins, you know. I'd always sit there and look on Facebook and I'd see Dan. I'm like, "Dan, you up?" "Yup." "Me too." "So, what's going on?" "Nothing." But, you know, and then there was a time that we actually talked about going to Czech and doing busking. Anyway, I don't know if anybody here knows what busking is, but this is pretty much what busking is. You know, where you go over and try and play for, and I wanted to go to Czech and do some busking. And he was like, "Oh, hell yeah, let's do it." And I don't know why we never got around to it. But, I'm never gonna ever forget that. He was very talented, very sweet, very patient. Susan, you know that? Trying to do Mockingbird 10 times. He was one of the most incredible guys I've ever met. And I feel for everybody in his family. And I hope that you all know how much he meant to all of us. So, and I'm sorry if I'm not as good as Dan is. I just know that I looked at him and I hope, you know, oh, wait, I got one other thing. I was praying the other night. I was praying the other night just to let me know that he was okay. And all of a sudden, right after I was praying, the computer goes off. The computer was barely, not even plugged in. And it just goes off, and it's a Facebook ring or whatever. And I'm like, what? This is like impossible. My computer's closed, everything like that. I'm praying that Dan's okay and that he'd let me know that he was okay. And it went off, and I was like, I guess he's okay. And every single time I wake up, I hear his voice in my head. You know, I hear these songs, and I don't want to let go of them. But it also sometimes angers me, and sometimes I'm in denial. I guess all those different stages of grief. But my girlfriend told me that's maybe his way of saying he's okay. And I do believe he's okay. He's in a better spot. And love you, Faye. If you ever need anything, just call me. Okay? I'd do anything for Dan. Believe me, I'd do anything for him.
Hi. I know that we're all missing Dan, and his death came very suddenly and unexpectedly. And those of us who knew him well knew that he thought about it a lot. He wanted it to be the way he went eventually. Of course, I thought that would be many, many years from now. But that's one of the things that gave him a sense of purpose and power in his life, is knowing that when he did go, it would be his choice and that he would take his own life. And just a few months ago, he had told me, I don't want a funeral, I don't want a memorial, I don't want shit. It's like, when I go, don't let anyone grieve for me. I want them to celebrate the fact that I'm no longer in pain, and to appreciate the joy that he had in his life when he was alive. So that's all really that I have to say. He was a beautiful person, and he was a troubled person, and I trust that he's in a better place right now. Thank you.
This is the most people Dan and I ever played for. I've never seen this place this crowded. What the hell were you guys earlier? Whose water is this? I'm gonna be up here a while. I really wrote this. I don't need to hold this, already being held. My friend Corey and I were looking for a guitar player when we had this high school band called Revelation. And we found Dan. Corey and I didn't know which one of us were going to play bass or drums. I decided I'd play drums though. He was mad, but we both knew I was a better drummer. Anyway, it's beside the point. I can't really describe how much better of a drummer I was than Corey though, and I need you to realize that. Anyway, we needed a lead guitar player, and that was when America Online had discs. We had like 25 hours left of this disc, and we decided to use that to find a guitar player. Dan was the best 25 hours I ever spent on it. That was 2000, early 2000. He was like, yeah. He lived in Cottage Grove. We were 18, and we lived in Coon Rapids. That's a long drive. We were hoping it was worth it. We picked him up. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And he talked the entire ride back about how cool Kiss was. I hate Kiss. He kept using the word tough. Like, man, that's tough. Like, T-U-F-F. Like, cool tough. I think the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air said that once, and then Dan. I don't know why he said that, but he kept saying that. We were horrified because we had spent like good money on that gas, and but then he began to play. And nobody that talented was going to intimidate us, new metal musicians. But he did. It was incredible to watch him play. We were amazed. We drove, like I said, from Coon Rapids to Cottage Grove once or twice a week. We did that for months while we built this band, our band back then. I remember taking trips to Guitar Center to show him off. We'd make him plug in and play, and we'd just stand there while he played. And we were gifted at not looking like we thought we knew how cool we were, but we weren't gonna, let on at all. I haven't read a thing I've written here, but I we looked very cool, and Dan was very good, and but we knew we were holding him back. He knew too much about music, and we were too metal, and he had too many Hawaiian shirts, and it had to end. We kicked him out and moved on, but Dan kept playing and playing. I got a career in telemarketing, and I had to focus on that. The fact that we came together, and he could play with an old metal drummer that wanted to get in touch with his funk acoustic side, and then just various other addicts, obnoxious people, and just create something beautiful. We never jammed. I don't know how many musicians, there's so many musicians in this room, you all know what I'm talking about, that 2 a.m. jam, and this dude's playing a chord, and you just sit there for 3 hours playing this stupid chord and no one cares. But it's amazing, right? We didn't do that in this band. We wrote songs. We would just sit there and oh, here's a cool chord, and then we'd all come in on the floor, and then there'd be an intro, and then a perfect verse section, and then someone would develop a key change, and that'd be the chorus, and then a bridge, and then we're done, and there's a 3.5-minute song, and there's a hit. Go, whatever. Nobody does that. Nobody did that. We did that. It was amazing. I've never been in a band like that. I'll never be in a band like that. Well, yeah, I will. But seriously, I mean, he was very proud of that, and I was proud of that. Dan was very proud of that project we built, and I'm proud that I got to play and have a master class in musicianship for a year and a half. He was a great friend. It was very easy to pick on. And I'm gonna miss the unique relationship we had. Thank God we still have his music, right?
Danny boy. So, I knew Dan in high school. He was this little nerdy twerp. With a Hawaiian shirt or oversized t-shirts and a bad haircut. Always rips in his jeans. Anyway, so years later, I went through a divorce, and I reconnected with him several months afterwards, and we started dating. I had an icky divorce. Dan was the perfect salve for that. Like he had this duality where he had depth, but then he also had this like playful, funny, ridiculous side. And for 2.5 years, we had a blast. I mean, he was all over the place. He was over here, he was talking about some really intense science thing that he read about, and over here he's doing some ridiculous, not the pencil drawings you've seen online, but some real bad ones, okay? The beginners. And he was always writing songs, he was always playing music. I sing, so I would often harmonize with his stuff, and he'd tell me that I need to open my throat and I need to, whatever. Anyway, it's really hard to listen to somebody seriously and take them seriously when one of their #1 favorite acts is Tom Waits. So, no offense, I'm sure there's a lot of fans in here, but the Garbage Lids clanging together, no, not so much. So, speaking of songs, a lot of the songs that a lot of you are familiar with, he actually wrote and changed a lot while we were together, so I'm hearing him from a perspective where like, wow, he put that in there and he did that and he did this, but one of the ones that stands out for me is The Day My Ship Came In. So that was inspired by a really, really neat song. It was a gospel song. This woman had this roaring voice. We went up to the cabin. My family has a cabin in Sturgeon Lake. And we went up just to hang out with the family. And Dan plugged me in, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. Well, where the hell is he? My dad decided he was going to try to be strongman and cut down a tree, but he doesn't know how to do anything but program. So, Dan, I got this. Now, there are 8 ladies and 2 guys. Dan's one of the guys. My dad's way older than him, and not in that kind of shape. Dan looks around at the ladies, takes his shirt off, and decides he's gonna push that damn tree over. And he did, okay? So one of my favorite memories is of him being fawned over by anyone from 11 years old to 40-something. And he's like, yeah, and I'm like, good job, good. You pushed down a sapling. Because my dad didn't understand how the mechanics worked. So Memorial Day is always a special time for me when I think of what a great time we all had together up there. And those stupid sports coats. That was one of the layers he had to peel off. So I don't know whose great-grandpa's closet he raided. And I do know there were a lot of mothballs involved. And I also know Dan had an allergy, supposedly, to aluminum in deodorant. So he just eventually decided to not wear any, which was really, I'm sorry for everybody. I'm sorry. It was bad. It was really bad. And then the mothball armpit thing. And the holes. Then he had his hat. And his half ponytail. He was the coolest kid ever. He couldn't fight the demons. You know, the playful part couldn't win through. But we all got to see enough of that to be here, to be inspired by him, to feel the love of him. And for that, I will forever be grateful. To his family, I've spent some time with many of you, and you're fabulous. You did good. You did real good. Thank you so much for coming tonight, you guys.
It's good to see so many people tonight that were important to Dan. I'd also be lying if I didn't say that I wish the circumstances were different. My name is Ben Arndt. First time when I met Dan, I was 17 years old. Me and my friend Tom, we were in this high school band, and we were towards the end of senior year of high school, and we had the first big show we ever did in Minneapolis in the cities. It was at some theater in Uptown, and there's some other artists on the bill. We were a grunge band, we sounded like Nirvana, and we found out like last minute that it was an acoustic show. So we pretty much had to, you know, tell our drummer he couldn't play. We had to scrap our set, and we had to like do this makeshift acoustic thing. So tensions were really running high that night. We were kind of nervous, and one of the people who happened to be on the bill with us was 23-year-old Dan Dragich. And, you know, we get there and we're trying to, you know, get all into the mood and whatever, and, you know, we'll be fine, this will be good, we'll sound all right, we can do this. And we watched Dan Dragich perform. We had never seen anyone with such talent and just such a high ceiling of a performance, and we're sitting there watching him. We sort of look at each other and give each other that look, and we're like, fuck this. We can't do this. We can't follow this up. But you know, we did, and we survived. And you know, we shook hands with him. He was a nice guy. About a year later, our band split up, and we actually went out to one of Dan's shows and you know, watched him perform. And we finally had the nerve to go up to him and actually introduce ourselves. And we mentioned who we were, and we played this show with him, and you know, he was super good and whatever. And like something totally unexpected happened. He said, you know, we're like trying to like, oh man, you were so good, like you were so great and whatever, like it was so awesome to play with you. And he totally flipped it around on us. He was mentioning how he's like, yeah, you know, I really wanted to like tell you guys that night, you know, you were all young and you had the guts to go out there and do your own thing. And he mentioned how he was like struggling with his songwriting at the time, and just like being a performer. And playing that show with us like inspired him at that moment to like keep going, just because, you know, we just didn't care and we just did it. And it was like one of the most humbling things that was ever said. And it was really an accurate representation of his overall character, like just who he was. And after that, we became friends with him. I remember the first time we hung out with him, we're at his house, and it was in St. Paul or Cottage Grove or something. And I just remember it's like 11 in the morning, and you know, we're sitting outside and having beers, and there's all these damn bees everywhere. I have no idea why. But there's just bees everywhere, and of course, you know, we're like 19 at the time, so we're total geeks, and we're sitting there and we're getting attacked by bees, and of course we're just swatting them, and we're like, oh god, the hell. And Dan is literally sitting here across from us, and he's got a swarm of about 10 bees around his head. And he's sitting there, he's not getting stung, they're not bothering him. We're like, what are you doing? How's that happening? And he just looks at us with a serious face behind those Blues Brothers sunglasses and that fedora, and he says, don't bother the bees and they won't bother you. Being 19 at the time, it was pretty intense. Never met anybody that cool, so, you know, we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, For sure, okay. And we're trying it. It doesn't work for us. We keep getting stung and attacked and we're running around in circles. And he looks at us, he shakes his head, takes a sip of his beer, and keeps jamming out. The swarm of bees all over his head. And later that night we went out to the park and darkness fell and we're jamming guitars out in the center of this park in St. Paul. And it's like midnight and we're getting all into it. And there's these people, just coming out of nowhere. Parks close at sunset or they close at like 10 p.m. And it's in the middle of the night and there's just people like coming out of the trees, like several people. And we're sitting there like, what's going on? Like, are we about to get attacked or what? Like, no, that wasn't the case. They came to watch Dan sing and play. And not only did they watch him, but the look on their face when they saw him perform, it was like the look on the face of a 12-year-old boy that just stumbled across his father's Playboy collection. And I don't know, that's the one story I have that can really be symbolic for his talent. And over the years, I definitely didn't hang out with him as much as I wanted, but I can say we both made an honest effort. There's, just different lifestyles, and it was hard to meet up. We always kept in touch, though. And one thing, though, that's cool is whenever we did meet up and we did get together, it was always memorable. Like, there was never a time where we hung out where something super awesome or super intense didn't happen, because it was always just a riot. And it wasn't just him being a talented musician. There was so many little things about his personality that really made an impression on me, especially as I was, growing up through my 20s and all that. I remember this one time I was coming back from a trip at Duluth, and I hit him up randomly, and he was stranded in Forest Lake, and so I offered to give him a ride to the cities. Just sort of how our paths would cross. Just we'd try forever, and then randomly they'd cross. So I give him a ride from Forest Lake, and he had some stuff going on. I don't remember. It was years ago, but he was ranting because there was this stuff going on. Like, there's all this chaos and whatever. And we're driving by Forest Lake, and this is like the one thing that really sticks out in my mind. And as we're driving by Forest Lake, it was like a really nice sunset and everything. He looks over outside the window, and he's like, look at that sunset. You couldn't fucking paint anything that beautiful. Every color of the fucking spectrum right there. And then he goes back to ranting about whatever he was pissed off about. I don't know, there's something about that really just, put things together, just like his perspective on everything. And like I said, over the years we didn't get to hang out as much as I would have liked, but we always kept in touch. He was one of those people where I would always talk to him first about certain things. He was always around. We were always on very peculiar sleep schedules, so he was always available. And I talked to him about the Second Amendment, or I talked to him about, old action movies at random times of the night. He understood all of my Snake Plissken jokes, which is a hard thing to find. Or, if I just needed to randomly talk to someone about, why I thought Richard Nixon was a piece of shit. He was, he was there. And, it's those little things that I think are hard to not take for granted. But, we can't change what's happened, but the one thing we can do is, shape the future. And I know that I'm gonna, try to learn everything try to use everything I've learned from Dan and, just apply it to things. I'm gonna try to be open with strangers. I'm gonna, live on the edge a little bit when I can. I'm gonna, just think outside the box, have that perspective on life that a lot of people can tend to lack sometimes. And I know that every time I do that, Dan's spirit is going to be alive and his spirit is going to be there with me. And that's really all I have to say. And you know, he's an awesome dude, and I'm glad to see he's impacted as many people as he has me. And if anyone has a drink, take a drink for Dan.
Always enjoyed public access television. I can't take any more Bachelor or Dancing with the Stars, and I like to see what people will do with TV equipment and no creative limitations. So one day last year, I'm flipping through some public access TV. Here comes this music show I've never heard of called Amp It Up. I usually watch the music shows because sometimes the music's good or sometimes it's just good for a laugh. But I always watch. So here comes this Amp It Up show. Sorry, I lost my place. 10 songs into this, I was pretty hooked. Very simple song, very simple structure, but this melody that it seemed like I'd heard it a million times, but I knew I had. So I watched the whole show. And at this point I hadn't been playing in public in about 4 years, and the thought actually occurs to me, man, if I was ever in another band, I'd want it to be like this. Show ends, life goes on. Fast forward about 6 months, and I happened to meet a guy at a mutual friend's house who happens to mention he plays drums in a band that needs a guitar player. So I don't think too much about it till he mentions they have a stand-up bass, because, you know, it takes a pretty cool band to have a stand-up bass. Yes. So he told me he would send me a link to his music, and I told him he could find me on YouTube, and I took off. Later that night, I get this link, I click open the link, and lo and behold, it's the Amped Up show that I'd seen like last year. Here's the same thing, it's this guy with the hat and the voice, and he's got these songs. So I grab a guitar and I'm playing like the song that was stuck in my head for like a month after I'd seen the show. It turns out to be I Might Be. I grabbed a guitar and playing along, and I realized I can do something with this. It felt like they needed me, and I decided I think I need them. So I went to the first practice about a little over 2 months ago. Didn't know what to expect, never met any of these guys before. And within like 5 minutes, you know, it was like we're all old friends. We start playing, everybody's great. If you've been in bands with people who aren't good, you know the feeling. Everybody's great, this is great. So we're having a great time, but it's pretty obvious Dan's driving the bus. He's calling out chord changes, things here and there, we're all just following along. It was great, it's like a fun, like a workshop. They said, they asked, do I want to play the Fine Line in 2 weeks? I said, yes. Yes, I do. And with that, we were kind of off. So I started to get to know Dan over the next couple weeks, but mainly a couple weeks later, we're booked up in St. Cloud, and he found himself needing a place to stay. And I told him I'd drive us to the gig, he could crash in my basement, and see what happened. So we had a good talk on the way out, the kind of talk you only have, you know, driving at night. And we get to St. Cloud and realize we have no idea what the show is. I thought he'd played there before, he hadn't, his phone was dead, we're lost as hell. If Jake hadn't called us, we'd still be driving. No clue. We just headed in the general direction of St. Cloud. But then he spent pretty much the next 3 weeks living in my house. We had great talks late at night, which for him is mandatory because he sleeps all day. His favorite thing to do was knock on my door at 2 in the morning, ask if I felt like doing something. Sometimes we would just sit and play music, not necessarily band related. We would play, one of our favorite things was Furley's, the Beethoven thing. We would just go back and forth for no reason. Sometimes we went fishing, got into a couple of nice bass last time out. It was great. Musically, if you've ever been in a band with him, he sure keeps it interesting. Any set list we made is out the window. You learn that about week 2 of being in this group. Several times we would play songs at shows that I'd never heard in my life, much less had the first idea how to play. But I loved the challenge, and it was great fun. And then suddenly, just as fast as he appeared in my life, you know, he was gone. And even though I thought of nothing else pretty much for 2 weeks now. It's hard to believe. Starting on the day he contacted me online, I knew Dan for 74 days, which just seems impossible. Less than 3 months, but I'll never be the same. And it was way too short of a ride with me and Dan, but I sure wouldn't trade it. Here's to him.
It's really awesome to see this turnout. It's really hard for me to be up here talking about this right now. For those of you who don't know, Dan and I spent a lot of time together. A lot of times, just the two of us in one very small bedroom. In fact, the smallest bedroom among small bedrooms in my house, which was a recording studio. And we recorded his first album, Better Underground. And we started in the summer of 2003. And both of us being the perfectionists that we are, took us all the way till 2012 or so before he finally released it. So I have a lot of really amazing memories with Dan that I feel very fortunate. You really get to know somebody when you spend that kind of time together in such close quarters. We were best friends. When I think of words to describe Dan and hearing these stories that people have brought up so far, I think it's clear that he was the most. If anybody could talk, just say one word, it's that he was the most. He was the most hilarious person we've known. He is the most playful. He's the most talented, clearly. He could be the most kind-hearted person, most intelligent, most argumentative. That happened all the time. That the two of us would get into a lot of spats. We're both. I saw a lot of myself in him. I think that's why we connected so quickly. I don't know. We had so much in common, and we both were sort of forces. And if we're running together at the same time, things were great. If we ever hit heads, it was like fireworks. I know I have a few stories I just want to share. Going back to the kind-hearted aspect of him. A few years ago, he had kind of fell into a bad spot, and I had a hand in trying to reach out and help him. And he ended up getting committed into HCMC, completely against his wishes. If you know one thing about Dan, I think everybody can agree that the guy didn't want help. He saw things the way he did, and he was going to do things the way he did. He didn't want anybody to have any say in it whatsoever, try as we might. And I went to visit him in the HCMC psych ward, and he was so angry with me. The guy was just livid, because I basically put him there. I show up to see how he's doing and everything. He's just, you think I belong here? You think I belong here? And there's people walking around in like paper slippers and drool coming out of their mouths and things like that. And you think this is where I belong? And then he'd go, we have orange juice here. Can I get you a glass of orange juice? Are you comfortable? You want to sit down? There's some chairs over here. He already knew like the whole lay of the place. And even though I was the most hated person in his life at that moment, because I brought him to where he was, in essence, he still had this kindness in his heart. The guy's just amazing. Talented. I mean, going back to that, just prolific. That guy, I have session after session after session of just, here's another new song I wrote, another new song I wrote. Just one after another. And they're amazing. They're timeless. They do sound like you've heard them a million times before. And you haven't. They're fresh and original. And that's a gift. That is just an amazing thing to possess, that ability to take something that just, he could do it, I feel like we made a whole record of that. I hadn't listened to music in quite some time. And after hearing about his passing, I went and revisited it. And I'm just in awe now, more than ever, at what he accomplished in his life. Speaking of life, he could be the life of the party. He was the most life of the party. Unless he wanted to ruin the party. We had some issues with that too. And if he and I were arguing, he could be the most, he was also the most self-aware person I know. He named his band The Polemics, the train wreck. He knew what he was in this world. He knew he was controversial. He knew he, was gonna You know, didn't care what anybody thought. He's gonna come at you with his opinions. He'll stop to appreciate that sunset, you know, too. When you're driving, you're just, you know, he was everything all at once, the most. He turned me on to so many things. Comedy, stand-up comedy. The guy, he just had such good taste. That's the other thing, he had the most impeccable taste. I was a fan of the sport coats and the hat, obviously, so I didn't mind so much. Tom Waits too, I liked it. Okay, turned me on to a lot of good stuff. Since his passing, I see him everywhere. I see him almost every moment that goes by, something reminds me of Dan, and I don't suspect that's ever going to go away. I think that it's true that this is what he pictured. He spoke of it for a really long time. You know, this is how he pictured leaving this world. I thought that it would be, you know, not so soon. I also didn't really want to believe it. I don't know, it's the time that we got to spend with him, though. This is what he gave us, and I'm eternally grateful for it. Like I said, he was the most, and I really think it's amazing seeing all these people. It's amazing, but not at the same time, because it's not surprising. He touched everybody here. Everybody who's in this room was touched by Dan. And he did that. Everybody's here saying, it's like you met him and you knew him forever. You could have known him, I've known him for like, 10, 11, 12 years, whatever it is. And you can know him for 3 months. And we're the same. It's Dan. You just know him. It means a lot to see so many people. His family, I can't imagine they're hurting, knowing how much, you know, everybody else is feeling as well. I don't know, just a great tribute, and thank you all for coming. It's great to see you. If you have a drink.
Dragich and the Polemics performed together from 2007 to 2010. Dan Howe, the upright bassist from the Polemics, will be joining the Trainwreck to perform a very special song of Danny's, Here Is Better Underground.
And I so wish I had the comfort level and ease up here that my son did. But first of all, I really need to give a huge thank you to Wild Times and to Sandy for giving us this space. So many people to thank. My friends and family who have been such a support, and this amazing, wonderful group of people who have come together in love and support of my son, Travis and Jim and Christian and Dave Morgan and Elizabeth and Susan and Jennifer and Sean. You guys are all creative and talented and loving. And Danny's band, he chose you guys because you're talented, loving people. And he thought you were the very, very best. Andy, Nate, Neil, Jake, Mike, Dan Howe, you have all been perfect and wonderful, and I love you so much.
We love you.
Thank you. Okay, Danny was our third born son, and I'll be really honest, you know what? I wanted a little girl. In the worst way. But then out came this perfect little boy, and it was instant, complete love. Although I did think, oh Lord, what have you done to me? He was a baby brother to David and to Joey, and with all the poking and prodding and teasing and laughing and fighting and love that three little boys could possibly have and could possibly do. He has the most, and I'm sorry I say has, it's hard for me to do it in the past, but he has the most rakish grin, the most wonderful laugh, and an insatiable curiosity and interest in the world and all the people around him. And oh, is that boy good looking. I told him constantly that he looked like Johnny Depp. Right? He always had such a sense of adventure. He was such a risk taker and always pushed the envelope as far as he possibly could. And if something was going to happen, doggone it, it would always happen to him. When he was 3 years old, he was taking swimming lessons. And you know how it is when you're in swimming lessons and you're little bitty, you have just a group of, 4 or 5 kids and one instructor. And the instructor pulls the kids out and teaches them something and then pushes them back up against the rail. And I'm up in the audience and I'm watching, and he keeps letting go of that damn rail. It scares me to death. So then, of course, the mom look comes out. And I do one of these. And he lets go, and he looks at me with this great big grin and goes. He was amazing. The headwaters of the Mississippi was a trip that we took as a family several years ago. The boys were late, I don't know, I'm not going to remember very well, but late elementary school, early junior high, something like that. And we went to the headwaters of the Mississippi. And it's way up there, and you can cross. There's a bridge and there's logs across there. And doggone it, if something was going to happen, it had to happen to Danny. We all made it across just beautifully. Everything was fine. But you know who fell? Danny. In the water, drenched from head to toe. Go figure. The last thing is that when we went, that picture that you saw of them we went to Florida, and it was one of those speedboat things, with the big motors behind it. And we were exploring the Everglades, and we were looking at manatees and grasses and all that kind of stuff. And I looked behind me, and I saw smoke coming out of Danny's pocket. And I was like, babe, what's going on? What's going on? He had been smoking a cigarette, hadn't wanted to pollute the river with it, so he kind of smashed it and put it into his pocket, where it burned a hole and there were flames and smoke coming out. And he was banging his pocket like crazy, trying to simmer the smoke down. Oh, good. Okay, you know, he's my baby. He was smart and funny and argumentative, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning when he would call me, and so creative and so talented. And it's incredible to look around this room and see how many people he has touched and who love him. And I so wish he'd known this. These last 2 weeks have been just unbelievable. I keep expecting him to walk up my driveway with that beautiful grin on his face and his hat on his head and a cigarette in his hand, because he always had to have a cigarette in his hand. And he'd look at me and he'd go, "Hey, Ma, it's just a joke. It's just a joke." It's not a joke. But my sweet baby boy, I loved you yesterday. I love you today. I will love you forever and a day. To Danny.
Chair, talking to some rich folks